Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic, and today we've got an article from Alex Abed Santos on Vox. Now, if anyone knows anything about Vox, it is filled usually with a lot of left-leaning SJW nonsense, but we see once again that it has not let us down when it comes to this. But this is talking about Brie Larson in particular, and so this has me slightly concerned for Captain Marvel going forward, though I do think that when it comes to Kevin Feige and everything that's being run over in Marvel, they are making a lot more, they're making smarter decisions overall with their projects. They are not letting political messages really drive their films, and that has been very successful for them. And I feel that if they were to start going the route of Star Wars, trying to bring in a lot of political stuff and making a lot of political commentary outside of that, that it would end up having an effect on it. So I do think that overall this might not have a truly negative effect on the film overall, but it does make me a little more cautious. And I just want to say first off that it's not that I'm against any of the things necessarily as they are that these people are talking about. It's just the way that it's being presented, and it's the way that it's being discussed. So Brie Larson calls for more women and critics of color to be writing about movies. Okay, then do it. Then do it. Again, no one is going to, again, most people, when they are reading critics online, do not give a damn what the sex, what the race of the person is. Nobody cares about that. The people who do are either racist or people who pretend not to be racist, but instead say, oh, well, I care because it's all about our identity and identity politics, etc., etc. And those people are just as racist in that way because they are breaking down a person by their race. They are breaking down a person by their gender. Again, true equality is to look at a person and say, I don't see a race, I don't see a gender, I see a person. That is what true equality is. Again, MLK himself said that we want to be judged, he wanted a world where people were judged for the content of their character, not for the color of their skin. And I extend that to everything else that's out there. Again, we want people who are talented, so go ahead and write. Go ahead and write. No one is stopping you. And if you try and say, oh, there's institutional things, I'm sorry, that's just an excuse. That is just an excuse. I'm sorry, but there is just no true evidence that there's anything actually holding anyone back from doing anything that they want to do. All it's going to do is take the drive of the person. Again, we're all made differently, which is why a lot of times people of a certain background are more likely to pursue certain jobs over others. However, it does not mean that that person cannot pursue anything else that they want to. Again, that's what true equality is. But anyway, so let's see what Brie Larson. Again, I like Brie Larson. She's a very talented actress. I have nothing against her, but this is just, I hate when actors come out and try and make statements. And also, too, I love how she's saying this, and yet she's a white woman. And it's just amazing to me how so many people in Hollywood, especially people who are white, and again, that should not matter in the grand scheme of things because we should not care about race or gender or any of these things. However, it is still interesting that most people who write articles, most people that do all these things are of this ilk in that way. So let's see. Brie Larson believes that representation in who's writing criticism about movies is just as important as the representation we're seeing on screen. Well, no. If all we care about is representation, if all we care about is a certain gender being on screen or a certain race being on screen and not on the actual stories and not on the actual characters, we're missing the whole point. We're missing the entire point of it. I mean, why do you think Ghostbusters bombed so hard? One, it was a film that nobody wanted to see. It was a story that no one cared for. And two, they said, oh, well, we think women have the ability to be Ghostbusters, and so we're just going to throw that out there and people are going to want to see it. And guess what? Nobody watched it because you kept a concept, you kept an idea, all-female Ghostbusters, and you just left it at that. You did not try to develop a good, coherent story. You did not try to do anything else. And that's the biggest problem we have, is that we have people saying, oh, we need more of this, we need more of that, without actually looking at providing good, solid content on top of that. Again, I have no problem reading a critic, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race. Again, I don't look and say, I wonder what this article said. Oh, wait a minute. I wonder what this person's race is. I wonder what this person's gender is. I don't give a damn about that, and most people do not give a damn about it. I'm so sick and tired of people preaching to us about this because most people do not care and should not care because we should look at a person as a person, period, end stop. We should not be judging them. We should not be putting ourselves into different categories. We should not be putting ourselves into different subgroups because what we end up doing is dividing ourselves and isolating ourselves from those around us. Why do you think there is so much tension in the world today? Why do you think there's so much just violence in the world today? It's because we put ourselves into these little tiny bubbles. We put ourselves into these little tiny groups and we don't actually try to reach out to other people. And it's because of garbage like this. It's because of garbage like this that's coming out from Vox. It's because of garbage like this that's coming out from actors like Brie Larson that we're being put in these groups like this. This is something that just really frustrates me. All right, audiences are not allowed enough chances to read public discourse on these films by the people that the films were made for. I'm sorry, but most films, and the film that she's about to mention here, was meant for everyone, or at least should be meant for everyone. I would hope that most films are indeed made for everyone. I'm sorry, if there is a movie that is just made for women, if there is a movie that is just made for men or for a certain race, I think personally that's problematic to the film, because if you try and isolate your audience, well, that's going to affect the people that actually see it and actually watch it. So it's just a bad mindset to go in, to have already going in. So she said this at the Crystal Lucy Awards. I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him. I want to know what it meant to be a woman of color, to biracial women, to teen women of color, to teens that are biracial. I'm sorry, but when did A Wrinkle in Time become about race? Have you read the book lately? It has nothing to do with race. It barely has anything to do with gender. They're just characters. And personally, I don't like the book, to be honest, but, they're characters. They're characters that are established. And you know what's not said? Oh, they're a white person, or they're a Caucasian. Like, none of that is said in the book, which is why they absolutely have the ability to have with creative license to do anything they want with it. But if the whole point of the movie was to say, oh, well, we want to tell this story that's just meant for this very small subgroup. Okay, well, why do you think the movie failed then? Why do you think it wasn't very good? Well, for one, because it was made with that social justice warrior mindset, because Ava DuVernay is nothing but a social justice warrior. This is a woman who blocked me on Twitter, someone who's a nobody, blocked me on Twitter just because I was bringing up like legitimate questions about her film, just because I was saying, well, why were you doing this? Why are you being so isolating? And she blocked me. So yeah, absolutely, I can definitely say these things because, again, even as a nobody, I have been blocked from having discourse with her just because she does not like where I'm coming from. So no, it has nothing to do with these things, or at least it shouldn't have anything to do with these things. So no, I don't care, and no one should care what a person of a particular race or gender thinks about something. I'm sorry, but again, you are isolating people. You are putting people into these small pockets, into these small communities, and what you're doing is you're isolating them. You are making the problem worse, Brie Larson and Vox. You are making the problem so much worse. You might think that you're doing something good, again, because there's nothing wrong. Like, I think that if anyone is being kept from a job because of their race, because of their gender, even though they're qualified, that is absolutely wrong. That is racism. That is sexism. That is what true racism and sexism is. But if someone is not qualified to do something, regardless of who they are or where they come from, if they're not qualified, then they shouldn't have the job, period. If we are just going to look at a person, or if the primary thing we are going to look at is their race or their gender, we are a part of the problem. And that is the big problem with Hollywood right now, is that they love to get on their soapbox and to say all these things, but they don't really actually think about what it actually means. They don't actually think about what they are actually doing. We are in a country that has never been as divided as it is now. And why do you think that is? Because the people who have the microphone, the people who are on the big screen, the people who are doing all these things are putting people in these tiny pockets. Instead of trying to bring people together, they're trying to isolate and separate people. So no, I'm sorry. Wrinkle in Time was a garbage film because it was a garbage film by a garbage film director. Again, that is my own opinion. There are some people who like her work. I just have not seen anything yet that's good. Selma was not a very good film. The subject matter was better than the movie itself. The subject matter was excellent. I wanted to see that movie. I wanted to see that story. But she was not a very good storyteller. She was not a very good storyteller. And the same thing extended on to A Wrinkle in Time. And it exposed it in a very real way, to the point where even critics, even people who are left-leaning, even people who should be on her, who should be supporting and saying, yes, this is what we want, this is what we need, said, no, we can't defend this because it's on this big stage now. There are so many people going to see it. So if we say something about it, there's just no way that's going to hold up to scrutiny. And just so enough, it didn't. That's why it didn't make any money. That's why it ended up, I think, losing a lot of money for Disney in a lot of ways. And that's what happens again. That is also a good example. So what we saw with Star Wars, what we saw with A Wrinkle in Time, those are both examples. When you have SJWs, when you have social justice warriors putting their politics, putting their political spin into their stories, guess what? People aren't going to see it, because if you just make a film for a small group of people, only that small group of people is going to see it, and even they probably aren't going to see it because they probably don't even care to go see it in the first place. You want to know why? Because again, most people, especially general audiences when it comes to movies, do not care about that stuff. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm getting very angry and very frustrated today, but these people in Hollywood just make me so frustrated with their mentality. It's just ridiculous overall. All right. Anyway, Larson's statement enters into a bigger ongoing discussion about American film criticism and how those who contribute to critical discussions don't accurately reflect the audiences who are actually going to see these movies and read these reviews. I'm sorry, again, that should not matter. Again, when it comes to film, especially since most films are made for general audiences, are made for everyone, or at least they should be made for everyone, then no, anyone who goes to see it can have their own criticism about it. If someone who is a woman or someone who is a different race wants to write something about it, go right ahead. If you can reach out to an audience, if you can have people who want to read what you have to say, go right ahead. Be successful. Go ahead and do that. No one is stopping you. And if you think someone is stopping you, it's yourself. You are the one who's putting yourself in the way. You are the one trying to use everything around you as an excuse. Just go ahead and do it. It's not going to be easy for everybody, but just go out and actually do it. Again, no one is stopping you. So the reason why representation might not be out there in their minds, again, I don't even know what representation actually means. Do you mean like equating to the population of the United States? Do you think that 13% of film critics, because I think that was the last time that we had a census, about 13% of the population, because this is talking specifically about African Americans, it seems. So what was it, 13% of the American population is African American? So is that how many critics there should be? I mean, how are you going to break that down? What is fair to you? And that is where the argument falls apart. Because in the end, it should be people who are qualified, people who are good writers, people who have a lot of thoughts, who study the material, who've gone to school, things like that. And it should also be people who want to be, who are going to be heard, who have an audience, who can grab an audience. I mean, especially nowadays with the internet, you can reach out to so many different people. You can reach out to so many different people. But it's things like this, it's articles like this that isolate us, that bring us, again, put us back into those bubbles. And what ends up happening is we end up just losing contact with each other. And this is something that I've said several times, especially when talking about language. Again, a lot of times when we are online, we can sometimes think to ourselves that we're not actually speaking or reaching out to someone who is a human person on the other end. And so sometimes our language can do so much damage because we don't even have that mindset. Well, this too can have damage. Articles from Vox, this statement from Brie Larson, these can have damaging impacts because there are people who look up to you, Brie Larson. There are people who read you, Vox, who are going to see this, and they're going to retreat back into their isolated status, and you are just creating more division in the process. All right, let's see what it says. Larson's speech comes in the wake of a report from an initiative that studied the top 100 box office movies for 2017 and reviews for said movies on Rotten Tomatoes, the review aggregation site. This study found that white critics wrote 82% of the studies. It further found that white male critics wrote substantially more reviews, 63.9%, than peers who are white women and underrepresented men and underrepresented women. Okay, so what you're telling me then is it's essentially meeting what the population... So, again, what are you trying to say about representation? That sounds to me, again, someone can provide me a link to the census and to the census data on that, but that sounds pretty accurate. So again, what is representation? Do you want over-representation? And if that's the case, then, oh my goodness, even then though, it just makes me so mad. Because again, all we should care about is the content that's being produced. Is it good? Is it bad? Again, the person on the other end should not matter. In an idealistic world, true equality is seeing someone and viewing someone as a person, as a writer, as an actor, and not seeing anything else. But the problem is that we live in a world where so many people just want to divide us. So many people want to put us in certain categories, even want to categorize themselves in such a way, and all they end up doing is isolating themselves in the process. So, oh my goodness, all I can say is just, I'm really worried now about Captain Marvel. I'm really hoping, I have still confidence in Kevin Feige. Again, he's done wonders with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Star Wars could learn a lot from them. One of the ways is by firing Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson and all those knuckleheads, but I don't know if they're going to do that. But anyway, guys, have you read this from Vox? Have you read anything else from Vox lately? What are your thoughts on Vox? What are your thoughts on this statement from Brie Larson? Please let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a like or a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And also, if you like this video, please share it as well. Again, it really does help me out a lot. And I am so grateful for those who are subscribers, those who do watch my videos, who do like my videos and do comment. I read all the comments. I try to respond to as many as I can, especially if someone asks a question. And I really do appreciate it a lot. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. Have a great day. And as always, God bless.